The following presentation is brought to you by the Realm Network.
This is a special day. This is Veterans Day. So here in the DeMott experience, I have the honor of not only having a veteran of the United States Army, a retired colonel, I have a Nobel Peace Prize recipient, and I don't know of a better or how else to introduce retired U.S. Army Colonel Robert Sholly. Thank you so much for being on the DeMott experience.
Hey, Bill, it's an honor for me. I appreciate the opportunity.
I first want to say, one, thank you for your service. Thank you for everything you've done for our country. And then just, again, it's such an honor, and the floor is yours. I'm usually not at a loss for words, but I'm kind of in awe of being able to talk to you today. So if I'll tell you how I'd like to start this, is I watched you speak. I saw a couple of your YouTube when you were speaking, your public speaking, and I'm ready. Whatever you're going into, I'm ready to join you, because I was never so motivated before. So if you could just break down the Nobel Peace Prize for me and explain that to the viewers.
Sure, be glad to. In 1981, I was the Chief of Operations for the United Nations Truce Supervision Organization in the Middle East, and that mission area encompassed Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza.
Oh, my goodness.
And we had the 2 years, 1981 to 83, was a very exciting period of time, as it often is over in that particular part of the world.
Yes, sir.
And we had the Israeli invasion of Lebanon. We had a Syrian attempt to put missiles in the Bekaa Valley, which is just north of Israel. And there were dogfights and missile fights. And at the same time, the Palestinian Liberation Organization was involved in that and sending commando squads into Israel and Katyusha rockets. And it was just a fun time for everybody concerned. At the same time, the Israelis were trying to withdraw from the Sinai as a part of the Camp David Accords. And a lot of the Israeli settlements did not want to remove themselves back into Israel proper.
Right.
So the Israelis were torn in two directions, actually three directions, as is often the case over there. But the United Nations was involved in trying to mediate a lot of little small combat and firefights, and also while at the same time trying to mediate a larger peace accord to keep the Israelis from invading into Lebanon and to keep the PLO from shooting into Israel and trying to send their gangs and commando raids into Israel proper. Right. So it was a very interesting time. So that was 1981 to 83. At the same time, there were a lot of other United Nations peacekeepers involved in the area as far as other parts of the world. And so in 1988, the Nobel Peace Prize Committee, or the Nobel Committee, decided that the UN peacekeepers had done a great deal for world peace and awarded the Nobel Peace Prize to the UN peacekeepers. Now, the UN Academy, or the UN peacekeeping organization, accepted the medal on part of the UN peacekeepers. Right. But each one of the UN peacekeepers got a little token, a medal. It actually wasn't a token. It was a very nice little medal that said 1988 Nobel Peace Prize. So because I had been a member of the peacekeepers from 1981 to 83, I also received that, as did a number of other individuals.
That's an incredible story. I think that's just great. And again, thank you. And of all the other medals and ribbons that you have, a vast number, can you briefly tell me how many? I don't know if the right word is awards or medals and ribbons that you have occurred during your time in service?
You know, I've never counted them. They're called awards and decorations because some are awards and some are merely decorations. Some are "you were there" ribbons that showed that you were involved in a particular event. Desert Storm has a Southeast Asia award for being involved, even if you didn't do anything except fly over there and fly back.
Yes, sir.
And there's a Vietnam Service Medal. It's the same sort of thing. But involved in that, I guess the awards that I'm most proud of are my Silver Star. I was nominated for the the Distinguished Service Cross, but they felt that the award board felt that somehow my actions didn't quite meet the standards that they were looking for the DSC, so they downgraded it to a Silver Star. And I received 4 Bronze Stars for valor at different occasions. One was a nomination for a Silver Star that is downgraded to a Bronze Star. Then I received the Defense Service Medal. And all in all, I have received the 3rd highest award for valor in the Army, the 3rd highest award for service to a joint organization, and the 3rd highest peacetime award for service, which is the Legion of Merit.
That's just incredible to me to and do. I always say I do my homework on the Build DeMott experience. I'm just fascinated by your story. And one of the things that motivates me is I'm a former coach, a wrestling coach, and I get to coach my son as he grows up. But your speech on opportunities in life, and you talked about how from Texas A&M and all that. Could you share that with everybody listening briefly, please?
Sure. As I talked in my little video there, I was raised in national parks. My father was a national park ranger, and we moved from one national park to another, and I felt that was a great life, and it was. I had the entire outdoors to play in. It was my backyard, and it was just a marvelous time of my life. The Texas A&M has a great curriculum for wildlife management. Right. And so what I wanted to do at that point was to major in wildlife management and go get a degree and become a national park ranger. So I started out. Unfortunately, I caught the Asiatic flu. And so after 2 years, I was had to drop out of school because I couldn't keep up on my grades. And so I joined the Army. Well, once I got into the Army, as I indicated in my little talk there, that sergeants, as they are wont to do for young recruits, they have a tendency to shout and holler and to harass and break people down so that they can build you up.
Yes, sir.
And so what I was doing was I was being brainwashed that, hey, this is a pretty good life to be hollered at. So I wanted to be a sergeant too, so I could holler at people. Well, that wasn't quite the way it went. I ended up being a sergeant, but I was still being hollered at by people. So at any rate, one individual found that I was, or felt that I was officer material, so he suggested that I go to officer candidate school, which I did, graduated as a 2nd lieutenant, and became 2nd lieutenant of infantry. So I went through that, and as I said, there's a wish sheet that the military gives you so that they can try and put round pegs into round holes. So if you go somewhere and do something in particular, and they have a position, they will then give you that opportunity. Well, so I wanted to go to Fort Carson, Colorado, or Fort Lewis, Washington, both of which are great outdoor states and great outdoor posts because you can backpack, you can climb mountains, you can go fishing and hunting and all of that. And having been raised in national parks, I thought that that would be a good life on my off time to be able to do that. So at any rate, the wish sheet went in, and I said, I want to go to Fort Carson. I want to go to Fort Hood, or Fort Lewis. And so I got sent to Fort Hood, Texas. And so that is when I said, well, that didn't work out too good. So I went down to Panama to go through the Jungle Warfare Training Center, and they kept me there at the Jungle Warfare Training Center as an instructor. And I came back, and then I wanted to to go to Vietnam because Vietnam was beginning to start up. And I thought, well, here I am. I've been through these courses. I've been an airborne course. I jump out of airplanes.
Right.
I've been to ranger school. I can, eat snakes. I can do all these sort of things. And I can swing from vines like, Tarzan in the jungle. And I can do all of that. So they said, oh, you want to go to Vietnam? Okay. So they sent me to Vietnam. And I came back and I said, okay, Fort Carson, Fort Lewis. They said, great, you did so well over there. We're going to send you to Fort Bliss, Texas.
Oh, my goodness.
And so I went to Fort Bliss, Texas, where I taught young soldiers as they were coming into the Army what they could expect in Vietnam, because in those days we were sending almost every class that graduated from basic training and advanced individual training to Vietnam. So when I got over there, or I had an assignment, and then came back and I said, Fort Carson, Fort Lewis, you are going to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas.
Oh, not even close.
Not even close. But it was to the Command and General Staff College, which was a very good assignment, because that's the middle grade and proves that if you can pass that, then you are likely, if you do things right, you will in fact go to the next higher grade and be promoted. So I finished that, and there was an opening in Canada for the Command and General Staff College in Canada, and they have exchange officers. So I said, I want to be an instructor in the Canadian Staff College, because they speak English and I can do that.
Okay.
And they said, okay, we're going to send you to Fort Benning to be an instructor, because they speak English as well. So there I was, at Fort Benning. Then they said, we need somebody to go to Saudi Arabia for 6 months with a team to assess the Saudi military. And I was selected to do that.
Oh, my.
So I was a member of a 6-man team that went over and assessed the Saudi Army and their mobilization and their how they could operate and improve their operations. They had just completed the 73 war with Israel and had not done well, because they had sent their force into Jordan, had claimed that they had gotten lost. They finally got up on the Golan, and they had in fact shot one Israeli tank, and so they felt that that was not such a great idea.
Right.
They needed improvement, so they asked the United States to come improve them. So we went over there and spent 6 months doing all of this, and came back and finished up that assignment. And the Army said, we would like you to be a foreign area officer, and we're going to give you some choices of becoming an area specialist.
More choices.
More choices again. And I said, fine, I would like to go to Greece, because I am a historian. And I liked, Greek mythology and everything that I had ever read about Greece. So there I was. I was excited about going to Greece. And they said, well, history is good, and we encourage people to learn history. But the only openings we have right this moment are in Turkey and Iran. Well, I didn't know much about either one of those.
Not Greece.
And it certainly wasn't Greece. So they said, we will send you to language school to learn the language and of your choice. I said, okay. At that time, the Shah of Iran was buying a great deal of U.S. military equipment. And so we were developing a great number of contacts and forces and being advisors over there and all of that. So we did that. I went to Monterey, California, to the Defense Language Institute, learned Farsi, as well as Dari, which is what they speak in Afghanistan. And off I went to Iran. So when I came back after that tour, I said, Carson Riley. They said, great, Fort Benning or Fort Riley, Kansas.
Farther away.
Farther away, in the middle of the heartland. There wasn't a mountain in sight. It was a great post. It was a great family post. And at that point in time, then I made some contacts with some senior officers who said, Bob, you're on the track to be a general. And oh, by the way, you're going to be a brigade commander, 4,000 guys. And I said, wow, that is really a step up. That's the next step to being a brigadier general.
Yes, sir.
And so I was excited about that. And then they said, hey, listen, we've got an opening, a vacancy in the United Nations in Jerusalem. Wow. History again. I love old things.
Right.
So I thought, well, that sounds pretty good. Now, what happens is the United States sends 36 officers every year. The chief of operations goes for a 2-year assignment, but they second 36 U.S. military officers, the different services, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, to these organizations, and they serve a year as an unarmed observer to the United Nations.
Oh.
So I said, wow, that sounds more interesting, because my general track was going to put me in Europe. It was going to send me to Korea, back to the United States, back to Germany, back to Korea, back to the United States. And I thought, you know, that's not much flexibility there.
Right.
So I was told, I asked for advice, and my mentor said, don't take the UN job. You know, you'll get out of what they call the mainstream. And I said, well, so be it. So I selected the UN assignment, and I went to Jerusalem and spent my 2 years there, and which is where, you know, qualified me for the Nobel Prize. And I had a great time. It was a very exciting time for an infantry officer over there. I saw a lot of different things. I learned a lot of cultural things about the area, from the Arabs, from the Israelis, from the Turks, from just about anybody that we came in contact with. I had 36 Soviet officers under my command. It was a very great learning experience for a young officer.
Amazing.
It was amazing. And so when I came back, I said, I don't suppose there's any chance of Carson or Lewis. And they said, oh, well, maybe some other time. But right now, we want you to come back to Washington, to the Defense Intelligence Agency, because you have just had some of the best experience in the world, and we want you to share that, and we want you to analyze everything that's coming out of that, and we want you to just help us out.
Right.
Well, I didn't have much choice at that time. So,
but had you given up on Carson by then?
I had pretty well given up on Carson. Lewis. You know, it was just a pro forma thing at that point in time that I was going to do that. But, you know, as I kind of explained in that little snippet, I learned at Riley that every time that I had gone to one of these places that they had sent me, that wasn't where I had chosen,
right,
something good happened. And that it was far better for me to have gone to where they were doing that than where I had wanted to go in the first place. And so I kind of gave up and said, okay, Army, God, Kismet, whatever, send it to me and throw it out in the winds, and I will go wherever you send me.
Take me there.
Exactly. I'm with you. And so I kind of let the rest of my career go that way, and it was an exciting career. I went back to a Desert Storm. I went back to Saudi Arabia, to the U.S. military training mission, and came back, and I was in the U.S. Army Center of Military History, in charge of writing the Army's official histories. And while I say in charge of, that really doesn't say it, because all of these very, very erudite and highly qualified PhDs who were writing the histories were far more knowledgeable about what they were doing than I was. I just kind of watched over them and nodded my head and said, that sounds like a good idea.
Unbelievable.
And so at any rate, I retired from the Army, from the Center of Military History, and then started a new career in corporate life.
Well, and that leads me to my next. First of all, I think the quote, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the pathway to success lies between unexpected opportunities. Is that right?
You know, you're my newest best friend.
That line to me, when I watched, I actually had to go back and listen to that 3 times, and I watched the video, and that hit home for me. That you know, I can't speak for everybody I know, but it's just a time in my life when I heard that quote, I went, that's it. And so for that, I thank you. But I just wanted to make sure I got that quote right, because that resonated with me.
Well, thank you very much. And by the way, can I get that in writing?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's in history now, and we'll get one of the PhDs that worked underneath you to write it. But that was just an amazing piece, and that quote. I'm going to have that, and I mean this sincerely. I'm going to have that put up on my wall. I'm going to frame it because that means a lot. So if you don't mind me asking, how do we come from the Army? Because young soldiers, amazing warriors. Can you bring me to because you're an author?
I am now. Yes.
So the book's title, I want to make sure I get this right, is Young Soldiers, Amazing Warriors.
That's right. And they, in fact, they were young. They were 19 years old. And they became amazing warriors in Vietnam and in the crucible of battle, as they say. And I'm very, very proud of those men.
And you got to tell that story.
I got to tell their stories.
And it's your website also is youngsoldiersamazingwarriors.com. Is that correct?
That's correct. And they can order the book on that, or they can get it on Kindle. On an Amazon. On
Amazon. And then also Soul of Success. Is that right? Is that your second book?
That's the second book. It's a co-authored book with Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup for the Soul guy.
Okay.
And it's a kind of a think book that says a lot about different ways to success. My particular chapter in that book talks about success is a 7-letter word, and it identifies 7 different traits that if you follow those techniques, and it starts out with SUCCESS, and if you follow those particular traits that I follow in the book, that they will in fact then become successful. Now, success has a great deal of different definitions.
It's a broad, yes.
Yeah, and so you may consider yourself successful if you have a good family life, you've got security, you've got children growing up, and you've got enough money to send them to college. Or on the other hand, what you might have is you might want $5 billion, and then you can run for president. And so if that's your term of success, then still, if you follow these steps of success, you're still going to make it.
That's amazing. So if you don't mind me asking, what's easier for you, talking to the troops or talking to the corporate world? Who do you find more more akin to listening?
Well, because I spent 35 years in the military, it's a lot easier for me to speak to troops. But I got to tell you that it's more challenging to talk to the corporate world, because in the military, and particularly when I talk about leadership, because in the military, from day one, you start learning about leadership. It is just ingrained in an osmotic effect into your very psyche of leadership and what it takes to be a good leader. And I don't care if you've got 15,000 people under you or 2. These traits of leadership are all the same. You know, lead from the front. Look out for your men and women, and look out for their welfare. Set the example, on and on and on. So trying to explain that to young men who come into the corporate world without that background or without that ethic is sometimes kind of difficult, because a lot of these guys are interested. I won't call it narcissistic, but it's pretty darn close. All they want to do is make it for themselves, and it's all about themselves, and everything revolves around them. And as a result, when they get to be promoted, if they're good, they sometimes have a tendency to forget those upon whose shoulders they have been raised.
The me generation. Me.
There you go.
Yes, sir.
And so when I talk to the civilian corporate world, a lot of these guys have become very successful leaders, but you know, they haven't become successful human beings. Now, they may have all the money in the world, but it's not gonna last as far as a company or a corporation or organization.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And I'm just fascinated. I love your delivery. I wasn't sure what to expect. I was nervous talking to a colonel, but like I said, I've watched your speeches. They resonate with me, and I appreciate your delivery. I love the story, and I can't thank you enough for spending this time with me on Veterans Day. First, again, thank you. First and foremost, thank you for your service, and thank you for your time. Right now I have it up on my screen. Please go to youngsoldiersamazingwarriors.com for these books. You can get them on Amazon and Kindle. Please, everybody who listens to the Bill DeMott Experience, go on YouTube and go to Colonel Robert Sholly and watch these speeches. That's my new favorite quote. And I think it's going to be a long time before someone replaces it. But Colonel, you have any words for everybody on Veterans Day?
No, I just have two examples. People who will read my book will note that when we came back from Vietnam, we were not treated extremely well. We were treated rather shabbily. I contrast that with my return from Desert Storm, where we were just showered with praises and thank you for your service. And I'm glad to see a lot of that has stuck.
Yes, sir.
A lot of our Afghanistan and Iraq veterans who come back are in fact thanked for their service. But you know, there's a lot of lip service to that. And people don't fully understand what they're thanking their service members for. So what I would suggest is that those folks who are just saying, thank you for your service because it's kind of automatic and politically correct.
Right.
I would suggest that they read a book. Doesn't have to be mine. Read a book about what some of these guys have done and what they do and what the military expects out of them. Our less than 1% of our population serves in the military. That's terrible. It's not that necessarily that individuals all should make a career out of the military,
right,
but they should at least know what their military does for them to protect and defend their country. So I would suggest that on Veterans Day, don't not only thank a veteran, but actually find out what their veterans have done and then really thank them.
Get to know them.
There you go.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you. I look forward to reading your books. Again, thank you so much for your time and everything you're doing. And hopefully you and I can catch up again down the road, because I'm going to be, as they say, I'm going to be Googling you, and I'm going to be listening for your speeches. And somewhere down the road, we're going to meet, hopefully in a national park, and have a better conversation.
Bill, thank you very much for having me. It's been an honor, and I really and truly appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Hey, everybody, I can't tell you how much of an honor it's been to talk to U.S. retired Army Colonel Robert Sholly. Please go to youngsoldiersamazingwarriors.com to get the books. You can get them on Amazon, and you can get them on the Kindle. I always talk to all my friends at Amazon who are going to order during this time, and especially on Veterans Day. If you listen to the Colonel, the message is clear. If you're going to thank them, get to know them. And it's just an honor on this special edition of the Bill DeMott Experience on Veterans Day to share this with you. Again, thank you so much to the Colonel. I'm Bill DeMott. This is the Bill DeMott Experience. Do what you say what you mean what you do.
Visit VinceRussoBrand.com to sign up for exclusive VIP content. You get over 20 new video shows monthly, including Vixens Who Rule and The Swerve.
where Vince Russo interviews stars in wrestling and beyond. Listen to Vince and Jeff Lane discuss weekly news and rumor and review Attitude Era Raws. Also, watch the cult hit Bucket Full of Chicken next. Go to VinceRussoBrand.com and click the red subscribe button to join now.